need to remind myself who Barry Levinson is, because I know that name. Oh, God. He did Rain Man, Good Morning Vietnam, back to back. So, two classics back to back. Look at his movies since 2008. What Just Happened, 5.6. Pollywood, 6.1. The Bay, 5.7. The Humbling, 5.5. Rock the Casbah, 5.5. The Survivor, 6.7.
Damn.
He's had a rough go recently.
Well, that was a movie.
Hello, welcome back to First Thoughts. I'm Simon, this is Justin, and today we're giving our first thoughts on The Alto Nights, which was directed by Barry Levinson and starring Robert De Niro and Robert De Niro. So it is based on a true story, I believe, of two gangsters.
Most of it's supposed to be a true story. There's some theory that was portrayed as fact.
Yeah, kind of like, a lot, but it reminded me a lot of The Irishman when they do that as well in The Irishman, where they're like, we don't really know, but we think this is what. But anyway, so Frank Costello and Vito Genovese are both played by Robert De Niro. And so if you don't know who those guys are, because I wasn't familiar with these gangsters before today, were you?
I've heard of Frank Costello. I couldn't have told you much about him, but I had heard about him repeatedly from various gangster stories. And I knew the last name, Genovese.
Oh, Genovese.
I think so. I might have that wrong.
I just said Genovese, but
Genovese.
So I probably had heard of Frank Costello. I was more familiar with Abbott and Costello. Abbott and Costello?
I got you.
Okay. No reaction at all. But, so they were two gangsters that kind of grew up together. They were friends. They were in the same gang, and then due to a series of events, they became enemies. And so this is more about the end of their career kind of timeline. It kind of touches on a couple different areas, but it's mainly like the end, told once again in a very similar style to The Irishman, where you've got the one guy looking back telling the story. And I actually had very similar feelings to this that I did to The Irishman, other than this was much shorter and easier to watch than The Irishman. But so we walked in, and I don't normally do this, but I saw the Meta score and the Rotten Tomatoes score beforehand and went, oh, it's no good. That's a shame. I was excited for this. I enjoyed it. I'm not trying to say it's Goodfellas or anything, but I had a good time with it. How'd you feel about it?
I thought it was alright.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it well enough. Also, you might be right on the pronunciation. I think I heard
Genovese.
Yeah, I think you might be. I don't know. Of the mobster movies I've seen, this was on the more boring end and kind of felt like a documentary. I mean, I know it was a movie, but it had a lot of documentary elements to me.
Yeah, if I had a major complaint, I would feel like I was kind of just trying to touch every moment without, like, one, dramatizing it a whole lot, or two, really going in depth. Like I said, I knew nothing about these guys going into it, and I left it still feeling like I didn't know a whole lot about them, or maybe their lives just weren't as interesting as some of the more famous gangsters or something. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure at the very least Costello is one of the more famous.
That's
ones.
what I thought.
I feel like I know a decent amount about his life.
I will also say, I thought Robert De Niro was good in this movie. There was absolutely zero reason for him to play both, and that was nothing but distracting.
Yeah, maybe they looked really alike in their older age or something, and they're...
I don't know. I mean,
otherwise I don't.
They gave him makeup while playing Genovese to make him look different.
Yeah.
In fact, they kind of gave him, like, something they did to his nose and chin made him, like, look like Robin Williams a little bit. But he does nothing to mask his voice. So both characters sound the same, both talk the same, both have similar mannerisms. So I'm like, within the role, he's acting well, but when you see the two roles next to each other, you're like, it's the same guy. So that's why, like, I feel similarly. I don't know. Did you see The Irishman?
Mostly.
Okay. So I feel similarly, like I said, to this as I did to The Irishman, where it's not on the same level as Goodfellas or Scorsese's better works, but it's overall pretty good except for two flaws. One, there's a distracting element in Irishman. They use the de-aging, CGI that looks terrible. This, you've got the makeup and the two guys, and when you're watching them talk to each other, I'm more thinking about how did they film this, like, and watching the one guy's reaction when the other guy's talking, like, what is he listening to when he's going, well, and cutting each other off and stuff. I'm thinking more about that than the actual conversation. And two, with both of them, I find it so annoying when the one character is narrating it, so like it eliminates all suspense.
Oh yeah.
Cause so he's fine.
As soon as he first showed up and we saw Frank Costello at the end, I'm like, oh, I guess he makes it.
Yeah. So I was like, I could have been in multiple moments throughout this movie. I could have been worried for him, but I knew he was gonna be fine.
Yeah.
So. And they do that in Irishman as well. I'm like, that's just frustrating to me. Why do you tell a story like that? That doesn't make any sense. But I did enjoy it more than I thought I would after having skimmed that review. Well, I didn't even read the review. I just saw the number. So I thought it was going to be bad. I had a good time with it. Honestly, I'm not saying it was great. I would give it a 6, but I enjoyed it. This isn't going to be a classic. This isn't an all-time great. It was a fine little movie that I enjoyed. It kept my attention. It kept my interest the whole time. You not so much, but that's fine. I was interested. And, it is one of those movies, however, though, that after it's said and done, you're like, I kind of just want to watch a documentary now because I'm curious about these people. And
I feel like it probably would have been told a bit better.
Yeah.
I would learn a bit more.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to dramatize it, I'm here to just learn a bit then.
Sure. Because there's too much to be said in such a short amount of time. We were both poking fun at, sometimes they're just dropping information in a conversation where they're like, yeah, that guy, and then he got thrown out the window. He got thrown out the window. Didn't you know he got thrown out the window? And it's like, this isn't how people talk.
But then they had the picture where he was, they drew that helpful arrow.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It seems like I liked it more than you. You still haven't given it a number.
I feel like 5 is a little harsh, but you're giving it a 6. I don't really completely agree that I should give it the same score as you.
Why? What?
I didn't like it as much as you. Why am I gonna give it the same score as you?
Because numbers mean different things to different people.
I'm trying to base things on your scale some.
Use your own goddamn scale. Get your own scale. This is my scale.
Listen. There's this website for rating anime called My Anime List.
I don't care.
What I've learned over the years is my scale is mostly just 8s. Everything's an 8 unless it's really, really bad. Then it's gonna get a low score.
All right. Well, did you like
this? This is not an 8.
Did you like this movie more than you didn't?
Yeah. All right. A 6. That's fine.
Okay. There we go. You could give it a 5.5. If you
I can give half.
You can. I don't always, but yeah, halves are on the table.
It was all right, but I don't have any intention of revisiting this movie. I would be interested in visiting a documentary about this story.
Yeah, that's a good point of rewatchability. I don't know. See, it's funny because I was thinking, oh, my mom would like this. I'll tell her to watch it. But would I go out of my way to watch it again when she's watching it? Probably not. So that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. So I guess soft 6. I'm still keeping the 6 because I think it was a perfectly fine movie. There wasn't anything wrong with it. I just, I wish there was a little bit more of some things and less of other things. I did think the cast was really good. Yeah. I enjoyed the acting across the board. Thought, technically it was well made with the camera work and the directing and stuff. I thought the pacing was a little bit off, obviously, but overall it was a fine movie. Does it keep the streak alive of good movies every week? I don't know. That seems like that's not fair. I thought it was fine.
It was good enough.
It's definitely the worst week of movies so far this year.
Yeah.
Going from one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life to this doesn't really redeem it.
No, Snow White didn't help lead into this one.
Well, we ran out of time talking about Snow White in the first review. Maybe we could just talk about it more right now. It sucked. Oh my God, was that bad?
Who cares about spoilers?
You didn't rate it. What are you rating? Did you agree with a 3?
No, yeah, a 3 just feels fair for it not being the worst film, but possibly entering my top 10 of worst films. It's not. I don't hate it as much as I hate The Love Guru. I don't hate it as much as I hate Avatar, the non-people one. Yeah, the Last Airbender one. I don't hate it as much as I hate Percy Jackson movies. I didn't even see the second one, so I can't even put that in my worst 10. It'd probably be there, but that's
I think it was worse than Percy Jackson, but Percy Jackson pisses me off more.
That's probably
because it's more
fair.
personal.
I've heard people enjoy Percy Jackson who didn't read the books, and as a person who read the books, it tears at my soul.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know, what else is there to say about this movie? It's kind of your stereotypical, like, run-of-the-mill gangster movie. The one saving grace of it, the cast is really good. The cast is really good.
I feel like that's never an issue with these.
No, it's not. Movies. I will say the shooter guy, whatever his name was, he had the thickest neck I've ever seen. It looked like he was going like this the whole time. I was like, "Are you okay? You good?"
Yeah, no, like the cast is just never really much of an issue with these things. So it's just even more a run of the mill
supply of Italian actors.
I mean, it just seems like, oh, what very famous gangster do you want me to play this time? Yeah, thank you. I'll do that. You need me to act like I do, just, New Yorker? I got that.
Yeah.
Say some gangster shit.
I'm just still so confused by why did Nero play both? Was it like, so somebody came to him with a script and said, "We want you to play somebody in this movie," and he said, "Which one?" And they said, "Well, we really want you to play one of these two lead gangsters. You could play both, honestly. Like, either one works." And he heard both and said, "Okay."
You mean I get paid double?
It just doesn't make sense to me. Why? Like, it's just unnecessary. So, like you said, there's a lot of these gangster movies. It's hard to stick out. So you do something weird and artsy and try and stick out.
De Niro told Good Morning America that it was producer Irwin Winkler that floated the idea of a dual role. "I thought he'd be a good Genovese, but at the same token, if he said he wanted to play Genovese and the question was, who would play Frank Costello? Well, he could play a good Frank Costello."
Literally, I wasn't far off. They just said, "You'd be really good at both of these. Which do you want?" And he said, "Both of these, all right." And they were like, "Wait, no." We went, "Okay." But yeah, it's like, I don't know. There's hire Joe Pesci, hire, I don't know, Al Pacino. There's other gangsters out there.
Nah, there's only really one when it comes to those older, late-stage life gangsters.
No, Al Pacino is in the same category. De Niro's a better actor. De Niro is definitely a better actor. But Al Pacino has his moments. Al Pacino is just like, he's in the same category, sort of, as people like Nicolas Cage or Christopher Walken, where either he's brilliant or awful. There's no in between. De Niro is pretty consistently good in everything he does. I don't think I've ever seen De Niro act badly in anything. So, yeah, but Al Pacino, when he's on, he's on. I think by the end of the movie, I wasn't as distracted by it. Granted, maybe it was just because they had less screen time together by the end. I accepted him as both characters. It was literally just when they were both on. Like, there's conversations that they're just talking back and forth, and you're like, if you close your eyes, you might forget which one's which.
Yeah, no, every once in a while, I'd catch myself, like, staring at their face deeply, like, okay, which one are you? Oh, I see the details now. And a little sharper on the face here, a little different in the hair here. I got
Well, the one wore makeup and the other didn't.
Yeah. Like every once in a while, I look at them for a second and I was like, "Which one are you again?" Just lose it for quick second.
I guess it's one of those movies that, like, if this is like your go-to genre, you love these gangster movies, go ahead, check it out. But, like, I don't know, it's not one for the masses for sure.
I think it's worth a watch if you like this gangster side of movies, or you just like the people involved. But I saw a couple of reviews saying this is, right up there with the top of them, and I don't agree with that.
No.
It's pretty middling towards the bottom of the gangster movies I've seen. But, like, it was some interesting events.
Risks as far as the story goes, and the visually thing, having it play two guys, sure. But, like, as far as the story goes, there's not enough happening. The dialogue and the acting was what kept me in.
Yeah.
And that's usually how gangster movies go. So, all right, we're doing spoilers. We're gonna do spoilers really quick. Not a long time. Spoilers, just a little bit.
The court case was
interesting. I liked the ending.
Yeah.
The farmhouse thing.
And that seems to be the thing that's the most in question, is the whole, because, like, the farmhouse incident seems to have all happened as told, except for the question is, did Frank actually set it up or not? Now, the movie clearly makes it seem like he's... What?
Ed keeps it very vague.
But they were basically slamming me in the freaking arm like, hey, he might have done this. Maybe he did this. Do you think he did this? Who knows? Everyone that was out to get him kind of got in trouble here and exposed. And, you know, he's living life, died peacefully in a hospital with his wife. Did he do it?
See, the only part that makes me kind of agree with you is the interview part where he's talking about it after the fact.
That if they hadn't done that, I would not be saying this.
Because the actual footage of him going around, like, yeah, sure, he keeps delaying.
Yeah, and it felt very much like he was doing that on purpose. But
you didn't know why.
And
so then when he asks why, he looks for a second like, oh, I know why. But then he went like, oh. And so it's like, it was iffy either way. But then, yeah, when he's talking about it, I guess, after the fact, he's like...
It makes it seem so much more like, hey, no, we think we know what really happened here. It was definitely him, right? Just pound you in the shoulder.
I mean, it probably was.
That's one of the theories, and then certainly probably the more interesting one to use in the movie than whatever the other ones are.
Yeah, that's where I'm like at with this, where it's like, you know, there's a couple interesting moments, but overall, it doesn't seem like he's got the kind of life or career that's really worth talking about unless they did it wrong, and it is. But it's like, you know, the court case was fun. I liked that. The farmhouse thing was interesting, but not a climax of a movie interesting.
Not good enough, no.
And then, you know, there was the fact that he got shot, you know, at the beginning of the movie is fun and interesting, but like that's the beginning of the movie. So there wasn't enough to go around.
Not really. It like Frank Costello seems like he has a hugely important role in the New York side of the mob, or I guess the whole across the U.S. Because we see all the various heads of various areas outside of just like the Eastern Seaboard. But it just seems like he's such. I saw somebody say the gentleman gangster. Yeah. For him, and it's just he's so quiet. He's so well with the politicians up until the court case. There's just not a lot of excitement because he never wanted a lot of excitement. Yeah. And he was operating pre-drugs, essentially. Yeah, and pre-drug acceptance.
The thing that I completely forgot about until just before you brought it up. Yeah. That, like, it annoyed me because it was like, it was such an interesting, or could have been such an interesting character study, because what this movie essentially was supposed to be was the difference between the two different styles in how to run the mafia. And when you've got them going back and forth about the difference between, you know, being a bootlegger and being a drug pusher, there's a significant difference in how they view the world and how they view business, and that's a really interesting moral dilemma to get into, and then they don't.
Yeah, it's just they have the little argument, eventually he gets shot, eventually they try to do the passing of the guard.
Yeah, and that's where it almost kind of does feel like a documentary, because they don't offer opinions, they just went and they disagreed. Yeah. Anyway, and it's like, I know, like, you know, you look at something like Scorsese, he wouldn't say one way or the other who's right, but at least he would allow for there to be a dilemma that people are debating and talking about within the movie, but literally there's just the one situation, and I just, that's where I'm like, it needed to be fleshed out more. There was so many interesting things that could have leaned into, and they didn't. And it's like his life wasn't big and flashy like you know, a gangster movie typically is. Yeah. But there was things worth talking about that they skimmed through.
And you know what? Maybe following Genevieve's story would have been more interesting than following directly Costello's, because it still would have tied in heavily. Outside of...
we're making it 50-50.
I guess he did spend those 16 years abroad, and that might not be exciting at all, but...
Well, he was doing drug shit over there. That's exciting.
Yeah, I know. Like, I feel like you could still have more of their childhood, have him flee, he could come back. He just seems like the more exciting subject for a just straightforward documentary.
I mean, like, so something else it reminded me of, partially because of the one actor playing two guys, but Legend with Tom Hardy, where he plays two gangster brothers, twin brothers, and one is, you know, the smart guy, the, you know, businessman, the political one, and the other guy's the muscle who's got a short trigger or hair trigger, and he's crazy. And you get to see both of their lives equally in how they help and hurt each other. Yeah, that's what we kind of could have done with this, but like, we didn't.
See, that's what they needed. Genovese is the second narrator.
Or just not had a narrator and just told it straightforward.
You know, I would have preferred that, but if they're going to have a narrator, now they need two.
It's like, so this is what... No, it's not. That is not what happened.
Yeah, they went right next to each other the whole time.
Fuck you, Mom. That's not what happened.
No, that would have been funny. See, we're going to rewrite the movie.
Yeah. So I think that's probably also why probably you like it slightly less than I do, is this is probably one of the rare cases of you've probably seen more gangster movies than I have. And
Possibly, yeah.
and because it's not my thing. It's not. I didn't get into gangster movies, well, really ever. I just have watched a lot because so many of them are greatest movies of all time, you know? And so, like, when you talk about The Departed, or you talk about Goodfellas, or The Godfather, or Casino, or whatever, it's like you have to watch them because they're great. And so I just haven't seen a lot other than the greats, and I can tell that they are copying other stuff, but it's not as like a smack in the face. It's like if you watch this genre all the time, you're like, all right, so they're just doing the same thing everybody else has already done, and maybe not as good. Because it wasn't until I brought up Legend that I was like, this is just like a not as good version of that in a lot of ways. And Legend isn't a great movie either, to be fair. There's great moments, kind of like this, but overall not great. So this it's fine. Like I said, it's not offensive in any way. It's just, It is what it is. It could have been a lot better, though, I feel like.
Definitely.
Check it out if it's your thing. If not, you're not missing a lot, honestly. So, I'll ask again. Is it good enough to keep the streak alive, or is 2025's streak dead? I think it might be, because a soft 6 isn't a good movie, you know?
Yeah,
it's a fine movie.
Yeah, which is certainly, if the streak's still alive, this is certainly the low point of the streak.
Yeah, I think it's officially dead. But hey, we made it 2.5 months to start the year. That's the worst part of the year, and we made it through there. That's pretty good.
Hey, man, it might be looking up.
Yeah, check it out or don't. Whatever you want to do.
Hey, if it's a choice between this and Snow White, you know which to see.
Yes. Snow White sucked. Thanks for watching or listening. Please remember to rate us if you're on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever. Apple Podcast. I don't know. I don't use the Apple thing. I use Spotify. It works multiple places, though. So go ahead. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, share anything you can. Does help. Thanks, guys. Bye.